All right, fifth graders, this is Mr. Combs, and I'm here to read chapter 28 of George's Secret Key to the Universe, and this starts on page 252. Annie hurried along the hallway after George. But George, she said, where are we going? Shush, he said over his shoulder. This way. He was taking Annie toward the side door which led out onto the road. It was strictly forbidden for pupils to go out that door by themselves during school hours. If George and Annie were caught leaving school without permission, they would be in deep trouble. Worse, much worse, they would forfeit their only chance to reach Cosmos, which would mean that Eric would be lost inside a black hole forever. It was vital that they leave school as fast as possible. They walked along stiffly, trying to look completely natural and innocent, as though they had every reason in the world to be going in the opposite direction from everyone else. It seemed to be working. No one paid any attention to them. They were just approaching the side door when George saw a teacher walking toward them. He crossed his fingers, hoping they wouldn't be spotted, but it didn't work. George, said the teacher, and where might you be going? Oh, sir, said George, we are just, he faltered and ran out of steam. I left something for the science presentation in my coat pocket, sir, Annie's queer voice cut in. So my teacher asked this boy to show me the way back to the coat rooms. Carry on, then, said the teacher, letting them pass. But he stood watching them until they disappeared into the coat rooms. When they peered back down the hallway, he was still there, guarding the school. And here's our illustration. Guarding the school exit. The last children were straggling into the science presentation, which was due to start any minute now. Rats, said George, retreating back into the coat room. We won't get out through that door. They looked around. In the wall above the rows of coat pegs was a long, thin, rectangular window. Do you think you can squeeze through? George asked Annie. It's the only way out, isn't it? She said, looking up at the window. George nodded grimly. Then I'll just have to, said Annie with great determination. I'm not letting a black hole eat my dad. I'm not. George could tell by the way she scrunched up her face that she was trying not to cry. He wondered if he'd done the right thing in telling her, but maybe he should have tried to rescue Eric all by himself. I want you to pause here and think. If you were George, would you have told Annie about the situation with her dad, or would you have tried to rescue him all by yourself? Now we're going to keep going. But it was too late for these kinds of thoughts. He had Annie with him now, and they needed to get on with it. Come on, he said briskly. I'll give you a leg up. He hoisted her up so she could undo the catch, push the window open, and slither through the narrow gap. She gave a small squeak as she vanished from view. George pulled himself up onto the ledge and tried to slide through as Annie had done, but he was a lot bigger than her, and it wasn't easy. He got halfway through, but then couldn't go any farther. He was stuck. One side of him dangling out of the window over the street outside his school, the other still inside the coat room. George, Annie reached up and grabbed his foot. Don't pull, he said, gently easing himself through the gap, sucking in his breath as much as he could. With another wriggle, he pulled himself free of the tight frame and landed in a crumpled heap on the pavement. He staggered to his feet and grabbed Annie's hand. Run, he panted. We've got to get out of sight. They sped around the corner and stopped so that George could catch his breath. Annie, he started to say, but she waved at him to be quiet. She got out her cell phone and was making a call. I want you to think, if you could make a prediction, who might Annie be calling right now? Mom, she said urgently into the phone. It's an emergency. No, I'm fine. It's not me. Yes, I'm at the school where you dropped me this morning, but I've got to. No, Mom, I haven't done anything. Mom, listen, please. Something's happened to Dad. Something awful, and we've got to rescue him. He's gone into outer space and got lost, and we have to get him back. Can you just come and pick us up? I'm with my friend George, and we're just near his school. Quickly, Mom, quickly. Hurry up. We haven't got long. Okay, bye. What did your mom say? Asked George. She said, when will your father learn to stop doing silly things and behave like an adult? What does she mean by that? Said George, perplexed. I don't know, said Annie. Grown-ups have funny ideas. Is she coming? Yes, she won't be long. She's coming in her Mini. Sure enough, just a few minutes later, a little red car with white stripes pulled up next to them. A sweet-faced lady with long brown hair wound down the window and stuck out her head. Well, whatever next, she said cheerfully. Your father and his adventures. I don't know. And what are you two doing out of school? George, this is my mom. Mom, this is George, said Annie, ignoring her mother's question and wrenching open the passenger door. She held the front seat forward so that George could climb in. You can go in the back, she told him, but be careful, don't break anything. The back seat was covered in recorders, cymbals, triangles, mini harps, and string drums. Sorry, George, said Annie's mom as he clambered in. I'm a music teacher. That's why I have so many instruments. A music teacher? Echoed George in surprise. Yes, said Annie's mom. What did Annie tell you I was? President of the United States? No, said George, catching her eye in the rearview mirror. She said you were a dancer in Moscow. That's enough talking about me as though I wasn't there. I want you to think. Why do you think that Annie said her mom was a dancer when she was actually a music teacher? We'll turn the page. When I wasn't here, said Annie, putting on her seatbelt. Mom, drive the car. We need to rescue Dad. It's really important. Annie's mom just sat there with the engine off. Don't panic, Annie, she said mildly. Your father's been in all sorts of difficult situations before. I'm sure he's going to be fine. After all, Cosmos wouldn't let anything terrible happen to him. I think you two should go back to school and we won't say any more about it. That's the thing, said George, who wasn't quite sure what to call Annie's mom. Eric hasn't gotten Cosmos. He's been stolen. Eric's in outer space all by himself, and he's near a black hole. By himself? Repeated Annie's mom. She suddenly turned quite pale. No Cosmos? But then he can't get back. In a black hole? Mom, I keep telling you it's an emergency, pleaded Annie. Now do you believe me? Oh my goodness gracious me. Fasten your seatbelt, George, exclaimed Annie's mom, starting the car, and tell me where I need to go. George gave her Dr. Reaper's address, and she put her foot down on the accelerator so hard that the little car shot forward with a great lurch. As the red Mini zoomed through the heavy traffic toward Reaper's house, George explained as he best could what had happened over the past 24 hours. While the little car wove through the traffic across town, cutting in and out, much to the annoyance of people in bigger cars, he told Annie and her mom, who asked him to call her Susan, all about going to see Eric yesterday to ask for his help with the science presentation. He told them about the mysterious note that he hadn't trusted and about Eric leaping through the portal into outer space and having to follow him, and how both of them got sucked toward an invisible force, and how when the doorway appeared to save them, it was too faint and only George had managed to get through. He had told them about landing in the library and looking around to find that Eric wasn't there, and how Cosmos had been stolen, how George had run after the thieves. But had lost them in the dark, how he had gone back to Eric's to look for the book that Eric had told him to find, how he tried to read it but he couldn't understand it, and then had found the notes in the back that explained that it was possible to escape from a black hole, how he needed to find Cosmos because although someone could escape from a black hole, he would need Cosmos to make it happen, and how he realized where Cosmos must be and had gone there that morning and seen Dr. Reaper. Reaper? Do you mean Graham Reaper? Susan interrupted him as she swerved the little car around a corner. Yes, replied George. Reaper. He's my teacher. Do you know him? I did once, a long time ago, said Susan in a dark voice. I always told Eric that he shouldn't trust Graham, but he wouldn't listen. Eric had always thought the best of people until... She trailed off. Until what? Piped up Annie. Until what, Mom? Until something terrible happened, said Susan, her mouth set in a grim line. Something none of us have ever forgotten. None of who? Said Annie, gasping with excitement at the prospect of a thrilling family story she hadn't heard before. But she didn't get to find out, because right then her mom turned into Reaper's driveway and parked the car in front of the house. I want you to think about what Annie's mom might be talking about and why they may have kept this secret from Annie. And that's the end of chapter 28. And chapter 29 will start on page 262. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it.